never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today's another fantastic day because I've got the honor and privilege to have another functional medicine specialist with me. We both share the passion of looking underneath the hood of the human machine. And we think of it as a machine and we think of us as humans. But when in reality, we are such a beautiful interwoven web of systems. Plus, there are so many other things that are living in us without which we would be dead. And you think, what the hell? Who is living in us? And that's what we're going to explore today, because the gut microbiome giveaway here will play a big role in what we are saying. So I can't wait to say hello to Linn Rivers. Linn, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Exactly. Oh, cool. And you and I, we share this passion, but this passion typically comes from a stance or from a position where you actually have faced obstacles and have faced problems, where often enough the allopathic medicine, so the school medicine, the Western medicine, sort of says, no, you're not having cancer. You haven't got a broken bone. So I don't know, it must be all in your head. So that was at least the 1980s and 90s. Luckily, we are moving on a bit, but often enough, our story starts like that. Was yours similar?
Very similar. Yes. Yes.
Tell us a bit about it.
So I grew up in the 80s where we were handed antibiotics like they were candy. If you had a cold, you got an antibiotic, virus, all the whole thing. You go into the doctor and they handed you antibiotics without, at that point, understanding what they were doing to our gut microbiome. So I grew up with digestive issues since I was a child, and I had pneumonia and asthma as an infant, and I was always on steroids, in and out of the hospital. And then I ended up with hormonal imbalances very early on, endometriosis very early on too. And it just cascaded into a bunch of different symptoms. And being a young child, I just listened to my parents. You go to the doctors, I'm going to have this the rest of my life. This is just what happens. And as I got to the point where I could take my health into my own hands, I got rid of my asthma and I got rid of conditions that they just kept handing me antibiotics for over and over again. And I'm not talking like in months I got rid of it. I got rid of it in days when I finally understood what was happening. And I was only 18 years old when I was figuring all of this stuff out, right? And I watched my parents, the majority of my family died before I was 15, and they all were in and out of the Western medical system, and they just got worse and worse and died. And so I just asked the bigger question, what's happening here? It doesn't make sense and something's not right. And I just went full speed into holistic health all the way.
Brilliant. Having said that, holistic health in the 90s, it was sort of starting to come along, but it was still sort of French out there. So how did that look for yourself? How did it appear for yourself? I mean, who did you contact?
Okay, so I remember I went into the room and I had the internet on and I started searching for something that the doctors just kept prescribing me pills for every single time I went in, and it would never go away. And I was looking at the internet and I was thinking, I'm going to look up and see if there's any natural solutions to this. For whatever reason, it was more of a download than anything. And so I went in, I searched for it, and sure enough, it popped something up. And I'm young. I'm 16, 17 years old at this point. And I try it. And 2 days later, it's gone. And I'm thinking, wow. I'm like, okay, well, let me see how this works out. And so I go a few more weeks and it doesn't come back. I'm like, this is great. And then several months later, never came back. And that was the point where I really started switching trajectories and thinking like, my doctors have just been prescribing me this because they didn't know what was actually going on. And so they just kept feeding me this pill. And that was the moment that like really switched for me. And I just started going into this profoundness of what is this holistic health? And yes, it's new. It's so at the surface, but there's something to it. And then I started seeking out other avenues in my neighborhood who they had holistic health groups, or, the holistic health stores, which I think there was only one at the time, but I was still able to find foods that didn't have high chemical processes, and they were loaded with sugar. And so that's where I was with it. And I wasn't even in a healthy town. So for me to be able to find one in general was actually pretty profound.
Brilliant. And that's often so hard, isn't it? I mean, nowadays it's so much easier because literally every supermarket has got the gluten-free aisle and the health aisle, etc. So it makes it actually so much easier. And in a moment, we will talk about the fact that even with supermarkets, you want to be extremely careful. I'll talk about a bit of the one-on-ones on supermarket shopping in a moment. But so very cool. So nowadays a bit easier, but still, if you don't know what you have to look out for, there's nowadays organizations that give you the health tick or whatever kind of stamp on it. And you just think, oh yeah, it must be healthy. And look, there's a green grass and a cow on the picture. Oh, fuck off.
Right.
Exactly.
All the marketing that they do is so perfect to make people think that they're getting something healthy.
That's right. And it's the same amount of glucose and fructose and other syrups in there. Exactly. So right.
Yes.
So, but that's our understanding now, our passion, and that's why we are here to educate. But yeah, you initially started off with problems, and it's interesting to hear your description of things, because all these things, the asthma, often the eczema, these kind of hyper-reactive systems, then the endometriosis, it's all those kind of things that are sort of interlinked that we know nowadays. In the past, we didn't. If at all, in the past, in the 80s, if you would have described your life to me now in the 80s, and that there was a psychiatric disease, like a conversion disorder, that you would have been labeled as that. So it's all in your bloody head, isn't it? And you think, nah, it is not. No, we know nowadays. But yeah, hindsight is a beautiful thing, isn't it? So here,
right.
So you started dabbling. And then how did you make that your passion? How did you develop yourself?
So the first step was actually holistic nutrition. I dove into holistic nutrition when I was 18 years old. And I had actually been dating someone who had diabetes very early on. In high school, they had diabetes. And I started working with their diet. And sure enough, they ended up getting off of insulin. And that for me was like, I'm 18 doing this, right? I'm like, oh my God, what else can I possibly do? And so the journey just kept going. The holistic nutrition program was so basic, and it was kind of comical to me. Like, if I'm being honest, it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is simple. And so then I started diving into other aspects of being human: massage therapy, spiritual counseling, Reiki, yoga therapy. And I just progressed. And then I found functional medicine. And that was just the game changer for me. It really hit home. It was just everything that I had been looking for in school. And I still went beyond and did my own research. I became an independent researcher because there are so many missing links, even within functional medicine, that I just needed to uncover. Because a lot of doctors, even in the functional medicine world, they're still playing the guessing game. They're still, let's look at this. And they're hyper-focused on one part of the body still, right? They're either a specialist in the gut or they're a specialist in the liver, one thing or another, instead of understanding that the body is its own organism, right? And everything is a cascade of symptoms. So there's one root cause, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But for me, it was just like this: keep going, keep going, keep going. How can I grow and evolve? And the research that I did, I mean, it was just profound to walk into clinics and be welcomed a job, but not being able to give me more advice as to what I was, navigating myself. So it just kept going, and it's still going. I am constantly researching. So
there is a joke. What is a holistic orthopedic surgeon? It's a surgeon who not just looks at a fracture, but he looks at the whole bone. Okay, so therefore, the sheer fact that someone says holistic and thinking wider, often enough, we were brought up when you're a gynecologist, there's the brain and there's some hormone centers there, and then there's the female bits down there, and there's hormones going down and a feedback loop going up, and that's it. That was 1980. Nowadays, we know that the hormones, the reproductive system is so intricately linked with so many other systems. And you're quite right. You're quite right. When we ultimately, what we're doing in functional medicine, we're looking for root causes. We're looking for something that has basically changed those systems within the body. And it's not just one little thing, isn't it? So I think we all have got our own answer with regards to what is the root cause. And essentially, we are all right because we're all talking about the same thing. But come on, as far as you're concerned, let's let the rabbit out of the hat. What do you think is
absolutely
what could we change in people's lives that is most likely to start making dramatic changes throughout the rest of the body?
So first, the gut microbiome, which we're going to talk about, and insulin resistance. Over 88% of the population is insulin resistant, and they do not even know it. And the inflammation, and it's literally connected to every single cell in your body. It's not just one organ. It doesn't just affect, a lot of people talking about hormones. A lot of people think of hormones as what happens in the reproductive system. And when they think about insulin, they think, oh, diabetics take insulin. We literally have a population that equates insulin to diabetics, not realizing that it's actually a hormone that your pancreas creates, right? And when we roll that in and we actually let people understand you're insulin resistant, which means you're not processing insulin correctly and your blood glucose are all over the place. They finally have an understanding of, oh, this is why I need to eat differently. This is what's happening. It's no longer this, you need to look healthy, you need to be in shape. It actually comes down to a physiological happening that they need to really take care of.
And that's beautiful. That's absolutely right. So when you look at weight loss, there is often the camp of the physical trainers who say, "No, come on, one more repetition, go for it." And okay, I have some salad leaves. And then there are the nutritionists. No, it's all the nutrition. Don't you worry about the exercise over there. So it's still that kind of, even in the alternative medicine, you have got those kind of camps. And if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And functional medicine starts actually to combine all those things together. Because yes, with exercise, we can change your insulin resistance. But if we only do that and don't look at the gut, well, guess what? You're not getting so far. But if you only do healthy nutrition and maybe some calorie restriction, there are some people in this world, due to genetic circumstances or other things, doesn't matter. They will not lose weight, whatever happens. But so there's so many other things that we want to incorporate, but I love it. So this gut, okay, in your case, you already pointed to it. There was a time when antibiotics were dished out like lollies. You're quite right. So that certainly is another great start. But there's so many other things that are not so friendly to the gut, which are sort of your top 10 or top 5 of how do you really fuck up your gut?
Alcohol.
Yeah.
That's
Gotcha. I would have done that too. Yep.
I mean, it's if people understood what alcohol is doing to their gut, and I want to touch in really back to the point that alcohol, not only we have proof, we have visuals of what it does to your brain. Literally, like within minutes, what it does to your brain chemical composition, right? With the gut, you literally have trillions of babies that you're taking care of. They're your babies, and you are more microbiome than you are human cells. Right. And so it is a symbiotic relationship. So what you are doing to your gut is what they in turn are going to do to you. It's not they're not being rebellious. They're doing exactly what they're being fed, right? So take care of your babies and they'll take care of you.
Yeah. That's very, very true. So alcohol, 100% agreed. Okay, what's the next naughty one?
So with that, processed foods, high sugar diets, high carb diets. I mean, a lot of people don't link carbs to being sugar. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I cut out all sugar. I'm like, you cut out sugar or you cut out carbs too? And they're like, oh, are carbs sugars? I'm like, yes, carbs are sugars. Right. So we eat so many carbohydrates as humans, and that's not our normal, our go-to diet. And so that's a big one. And your lifestyle, obviously sedentary lifestyle has such an impact on your gut and the people that you surround yourself with. What media are you watching? All these things that are going to affect your mental health are also going to affect your gut microbiome. So there's so many things that go into it. It's not just like this one thing where, oh, eat better and you're going to be fine. And I love how you said that, because the reality is I always look at it as extremes. People are either all the way over here on the left or all the way over here on the right, and they never come into the middle. It's mind, body, spirit. You have to know yourself from all levels in order to heal and become a better version of yourself. There's no way of getting around it. You can't skip one or the other. And so for me, it's really about coming in and making sure you're checking all the components. If you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you expect to be healthy just because you're eating a lot of salad, sorry to tell you, that's not going to do you well, and
oh, come on.
man.
But then again, there are times when you have to kick ass, and you need to understand that you're essentially borrowing time. You're borrowing energy, with all the stress buildup, you're borrowing from tomorrow. So even if you, let's rephrase that a bit. If you don't pay any attention to your nutrition, you're well on your back foot. Now you stress yourself to the max. There's only so long you can do that before your body starts screaming. And you don't hear it. So therefore it needs to scream louder, and then suddenly you've got an autoimmune disorder or chronic pain somewhere, or et cetera, et cetera. It's just spirals out of control. Nature, the universe, your body wants to tell you something, and you just are blind, dumb, deaf. And it is just a fact. So
that's what breaks my heart. Your body is literally a tool. It is a machine, and it is telling you, hey, something's off. And one of the big things I like to remind people is when you go into a hospital and they diagnose you with any condition, that diagnosis is a symptom, not a disease. They are diagnosing you with a symptom. It is your body saying, something's not right. Help me. Right. Absolutely. But we want the quick fix pill. So we're like, oh, just tell me what I need to do, and never taking it into your own hands. But the reality is all disease that are labeled are symptoms of something out of balance.
That's very true. And what you said earlier, you said a sentence along the lines of that everything that is bad for your mental health is also bad for your gut. I would actually at times turn it other way around. Everything that is bad for your gut makes it bad for the mental health. Many people don't realize that our gut bacteria are not just some weird shit that sits in there. Well, it is shit. I mean, they are sitting in our colon, so that's where the feces is being made. But they are alive. They are little babies. I love that. But babies who have got very specialized tasks. For example, to make serotonin. Serotonin is a beautiful hormone, and if you're really, really low in it, you know it. It's called depression. So here you are. If we actually start looking after our gut bacteria, suddenly life turns around and changes.
Exactly.
Wow.
You have no idea how big that is for me, because what I've been speaking on the most, I just actually was in LA doing a talk the other day about how your gut microbiome and your health. My book is actually called Your Health Sets the Tone. And the reality is so many people are looking to heal their trauma through all of these different modalities that are external from themselves. And they're focused on the energetics of it instead of realizing that it's the body that's creating the physiological responses, the anger, the aggression, the sadness, whatever it is, right? So your body has an imbalance. And so when you can actually correct those and bring your body back into alignment, you actually no longer have that flight or fight going, right? And so then you can look at these traumatic experiences from a completely different lens and actually heal through it. And I have been talking about this because no one is pointing this out. It baffles me that we know that mental illness stems so much from our gut, and yet we're still trying to heal it from an external space. And for me, it's just that is my passion right there. Is there are so many people, 1 in 25 people are living with a chronic form of mental disease. And we're still saying, here, take a pill, or you need to go to therapy, or you need to do this, instead of being like, let's find out what kind of dysbiosis you have. Let's figure out what's going on in your system, because there is even one gut bacteria, that the gut-brain barrier. I don't think people understand that there are literally millions of nerves that go from your gut to your brain. And what they're doing in here is going to cause reactions. And certain food compounds alone, if you have dysbiosis and you're feeding that dysbiotic bacteria or fungi or anything that's in there, that's going to cause neurological symptoms because they're neurotoxins. Like plants have neurotoxins. And when we have leaky gut, it's going to seep in and it's going to cause so many issues. So that's my biggest passion.
Exactly. And I think it is a very weird thing to understand and feel the power of small changes. About 6-7 years ago, I felt run down. I had stopped drinking many years before that, and I thought my nutrition was reasonably healthy, but I was constantly tired. So I went to a nutritionist I trusted a lot, who I had sent many people to, and he is more a functional medicine dude. Okay, he didn't label himself, but that was really what he was. And he actually took me apart. So paid an arm and a leg for quite a few tests there. And blimey, turns out I had food allergies left, right, and center. And that was essentially a sign of leaky gut with hindsight. So here I was. So first things first, and all the foods that I responded to, and not as in the sense of nearly dying due to peanut allergy. I'm talking low grades of, that's right, sensitivities, but enough to raise my inflammatory markers in my blood. And let's quick word about blood tests, guys out there. When you go to your GP, the GP might well say, hey, look, your CRP is normal and your hemoglobin is normal. Vitamin D, normal. And what Western medicine does, it delineates between clearly disease and normal. Now, within normal, there is optimal and there is suboptimal. And that is the difference that so many doctors nowadays don't look at and maybe don't even understand yet. That if you have got a Lamborghini, $1 million car, do you just put enough oil in that the oil lamp doesn't go on? Or do you just put enough water in that just the heat, it might go a bit up, it'll be fine? Definitely not. But with our body, we're doing exactly that. So just wanted to outline that the blood tests, when we talk about testing, that only because you're normal doesn't mean bugger all. Okay, there is an optimal range, which is often, people are often far, far, far too low. And that turned out this case with me. Never I'm saying that. Nothing wildly, I'm not sick to death due to cancer, but things were out of kilter. Okay. 3 months later, after salads and steaks for breakfast and all the good shit that I liked was cut out, what shall I say? My energy levels? Of course, they were the right nutraceuticals and the right help, the things that I needed, he gave me. My energy levels, woof. Old shoulder injury, gone. A nasty pain problem that I had on an Achilles tendon, gone. Smelly feet, gone. Hay fever, virtually gone. 3 months of essentially nutraceuticals, no new tablets, no nothing, just healthy shit and change in diet. Changed my life. Unless you see it, unless you feel it. And like Linn, you had this, again, this revelation. Guys, this is fucking gorgeous. This is freedom. And that's why we two are so passionate about it, because we can change lives. And with nine, we can empower you to change your life. Let's call it like that. Lynn hasn't got a magic wand. She's not sitting up there in the lotus position up somewhere on a high mountain. Although you may, I don't know. You're a yoga instructor as well.
No, grounded.
Grounded, okay. So here you go. So wonderful. So that's the gut microbiome. We told you guys what not to do. Well, shall we tell them what to do?
I mean, that's the big thing, right? I think you said it perfectly. And I'm actually creating a course right now for people where they can get all of the functional information that I've learned over the years, right? But the reality is I can hand you the tools, but it's up to you to actually take them and run with it, right? What's that old saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That is the truth. You are responsible for your own health and wellness. And it's one of those things where you either take responsibility for your life. And if you ask the question, if I'm where I'm at 5 years from now, will I be happy? And 99% of you are going to say no. You're going to want to be somewhere else. And that's the moment that you take a new step. It doesn't have to be a big step, right? And so when we're telling you, like, look at what you're eating. How many carbs are you eating? Where are you getting your food sources from? And all of these different components that go into it. We can sit here and we just said, like, watch your carbs, watch your drinking habits. And I think a lot of people, they like to make excuses. And when we're talking, I'm seeing your books around you and I'm thinking about sobriety and how many people make excuses as to like, oh, well, I like to drink a beer at the end of the day because it relaxes me. There are millions of things that can relax you a whole lot more than a beer can. So
that's right.
It's just, there's really no excuse to start stepping in to take care of yourself. Like, this is your life. This is your body. It's your gift to get through this existence and to learn and to experience. And it's, why not take care of it, right? It's the only one you've got here for this lifetime.
So true. And I love it what you're saying there. I think that there are a hell of a lot of things that we can cut out, and I think I want to come back to the supermarket and to the highly processed food, because many people don't actually realize what is highly processed food. I think for me, if you were to ask me, I would recommend you to look at the ingredients of whatever you're shopping for, and if there are more than 5 things on there, then you probably should think twice, should you want to eat it? Okay.
Can you pronounce it?
I was about to say, and if there are names where you think, what the hell? I don't even know how to spell that, then probably not.
Yeah.
I think this would be so important because I don't know the number you quote, but I would say 80, 90% of the things that you find in the supermarket is not food. Because food is defined as something that nourishes your body and promotes it to become healthy. That's food. I'm sorry, no, the shit that we are having. If you have any doubt, I mean, take fizzy drinks. I mean, what do you think about fizzy drinks? Should we have a Coke together?
No, absolutely not.
But why?
I mean, you're just impacting your body like that much quicker. It's like, oh, let me get into your bloodstream so much quicker and elevate everything. Send you on a glucose spike.
That's right, exactly. So what we've got in Coke, sorry, let's call it what it is, Coke. You have got shitloads of sugar. I keep forgetting. It's basically a handful of sugar in a bottle of Coke, something like that. And there are other ingredients in there which are really, really handy if you're a handyman. Literally, I mean that. If you want to clean the rust of your car, beautiful. Take some Coke and go scrubbing. It'll do the trick. There's some beautiful videos. Exactly. Yeah, there you go. So
exactly.
If you now think that you're doing something good when you have Coke, do you really think that your life will change according to the Coke advertisement? That you will drink your Coke and suddenly you've got this abs and women will float to you like, I don't know. Do you think it works?
You know, there's actually another point I'd love to bring on, because a lot of people, you talked about your food sensitivities, and I had a lot of food sensitivities too. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people could really benefit from, is finding out what's actually triggering them. Because I had leaky gut so I had a near-death experience of several years ago at this point. And after coming out of that, my gut was wrecked. It was not happy. And I had leaky gut like you would not believe. And I started having a lot of food sensitivities. And that's where I started diving into salicylates and oxalates and lectins in plants. And salicylates in plants, if you have a leaky gut, they're neurotoxins. And the way that they show up is they are directly linked to autism. They're directly linked to suicidal depression. They're directly linked to heart palpitations and the dark circles under your eyes, nose polyps. There's a lot of physical, but the mental components. I used to be a really aggressive child, and even into my teens and 20s. And it was not until I removed the high salicylate foods from my diet that completely went away. So we were talking about the mental aspect, right? And how what you eat affects your mental wellness. That was the biggest aha moment for me. Of not understanding that the more plant chemicals that we eat that are high in these salicylates and oxalates, the more damage it's doing. Because unfortunately, when you have gut dysbiosis, your liver is also going to be a little bit backed up, and it has to process the rest of those toxins that's not actually just excreting from your digestive system, if you will. And so those can cause a lot of problems. And I'm actually making a documentary right now where we're going into clinics. We're going into even they're called the prison system here. I don't know what they call there, but the prison system, where these people who were murderers, like they had several degree murders, and we're seeing what happens when they remove these compounds from their diet, because it triggers the MAO gene, which if you have a genetic mutation, it's called the monoxamine A gene. And when you have that gene mutation, if you eat certain foods that trigger it, it causes aggressive behavior. And they have actually found sentences lessened when they found out that these people had these genetic mutations. And so there's so much more to the diet than meets the eye. Just because you think you're eating healthy does not mean it's going to be the right diet for you if you specific, chemical sensitivities.
Very nice, very good. And in general terms, we have seen that over the years. Jamie Oliver, UK chef, he went into schools and changed the school dinners, and then just sort of saw what was actually happening, and the sick days of the children down dramatically. Presentations with asthma to the school nurse down dramatically. We have seen studies out of Finland where they changed the nutrition in the prison system, and 30% down in violent attacks, violence within the system, etc. There are so many examples out there. It's not that these are hidden, okay, but these are drowned in advertisements, which are absolutely, I don't know, the ratio of good information to shit is what, 1 to 100,000? I know it's hard to put a thing on there. When it comes to alcohol, the UK did a study where they looked at the two main streaming services and looked at 1,000 hours of the most commonly watched shows and analyzed how much alcohol is in there. And then on average, every 3 to 3.5 minutes, alcohol is being drunken, displayed, positive, always positive there, always there, people are drinking. And what was amazing, regardless what genre of films or shows you watched, one streaming service, they really liked their beers, and especially one beer. And in the other one, they loved the whiskey. I mean, it's just so surprising. What coincidence. So, exactly. We are going against a $1 trillion industry. So here the two of us are saying, yeah, eat healthy. And then the next thing, no, have the sprinkles on the chocolate.
Right.
How can we win?
Well, I think that's it. I think we are, by having this conversation. And so many people are waking up and listening to podcasts. And this is where people like you and I can get our voices out, because it's not part of the main mass media. Now, on the larger spectrum, I was very strongly into the movie industry when I was in my early 20s here. And I jumped out of it because I didn't know who I was. And now I'm being called back into it again, slowly but surely. I have a lot of big connections here, and they're calling me in to work on products. And I'm like, great, I will do this if this is how we do it. And for me, we're going to represent healthy habits, healthy relationships. We're going to show people how to communicate when we're doing these skits, right? And there's not going to be alcohol. We're going to have these teens talking about, hey, like, let's go to the juice bar. I want to go somewhere other than go get drunk, right? And so that is my stipulation. If they want me to be part of their program, I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And if they want me, then great. That's what's going to happen, and it's like I said, the other day I was in LA, and that they were completely on board with it. And I was like, awesome. This is what we need. We need this in bigger perspectives, right? Because we don't have this on the mass market right now. It's because all the money comes from all the companies that are trying to push their cigarettes, push their alcohol, push their Coke. And so it's about putting ourselves out there and just sharing our voice, sharing our stories.
Absolutely.
Letting people hear us.
And I mean, another example from the sobriety/nutrition world. The alcohol industry has very much caught onto it, that people want to be healthier, that they don't want to have, shitloads of carbs in their beer or in their wine. So what better to do than hard seltzers? So see, here you go. You don't have any carbs in there. Big labels, no carbs. Hey, great. So let's see, from a financial point of view, I'll take water, I'll put some carbon dioxide in there, I'll put a taste in there, and then we mix it with some alcohol. That should cost me a few cents. We can sell it for $10. I like it. So okay, so this is what is happening out there. So people will jump onto the gender equality, the pinkification that we've seen in alcohol advertisement, the rainbows that are coming out with any kind of non-binary, you name it. The alcohol industry and the food industry will take your money wherever they can get it. So therefore, it's good that we actually point that out, because these are all potential hurdles there that stop you from living your life to the fullest, and where essentially you are basically Shaun the sheep, being,
right. Exactly. Oh. Yes, I try to be nice, and I'm not calling people sheep. However, it is a sheep mentality. I think it's over 90% of the population follow. They're so easily guided by the media that they don't even realize they're being hypnotized, right? They have zero idea that they're being hypnotized by everything they're watching and listening to. And it's just, wow, it's, we had a reason to wake up. Mine hit me over the head over and over and over again. Now we have the tools where people don't have to get to that point. And it's just, take a step forward. Like, if you want to be a better person, take the step forward. Nice.
And ultimately, I think, whilst we have been talking maybe a bit negatively about my colleagues, as I think still, in all fairness, this was not negative. It was more a reality check that each doctor has got strengths and weaknesses. So if you have a tumor in your spine, you bloody well want to have someone who knows exactly what to do with the knife inside your spine. Okay. So, but there are other doctors where you maybe want to have a broader approach. And I think that is really, really important. So everyone has its place.
Absolutely.
And what you want to do is, when you are probably in your middle age, because a few of us get the message when we're younger. Typically, you are 30, 40, 50 by the time you actually say, oh, for crying out loud, is that it? And then you finally seek help. So I think the first step should still be your family physician, your GP, because he or she knows you well. Hopefully you've had a relationship with them. They can figure out what is your story, etc. And they might be able to add things in that you might have not even remembered or forgotten, and actually fill out the information. So ultimately, good start. And they can check out for those things that are well and truly out of the normal. The established diabetes, your hypertension, your heart failure, those kind of things that are really, really not so nice, where you need your help right now. So I think this would be a good start, get some bloods done, and that's a baseline. But then the journey begins. But
Right.
where to go from there? Let's say the GP, family physician, is not holistic, does know not much about the gut health, and says, maybe I should send you to an endocrinologist. Maybe I should send you that. What would be sort of next steps from a logical point of view, from a sort of systems approach point of view, as far as you're concerned?
Well, I always highly recommend people start with a naturopathic physician of some sort. I don't know if they're called
Few,
that in
yeah,
New Zealand.
few and far between
Something.
here.
Oh, wow, really? Okay, so there are practitioners who they study. It's still a medicine background. They still have the medicine background. However, it's an integrative approach. And so if you're diagnosed with certain conditions, they're not going to say, oh, here's a pill, you're just going to have to learn to fix this. They're going to help you understand why it's happening, right? And they also do blood work that is outside of the scope of the Western practice, because the Western practice typically gives you very basic blood work. And there's so many other things that you need to know. Your nutrition panels, like that's a really big one. Are you nutrient deficient in certain things? Because
Absolutely.
a lot of people don't even realize magnesium, for example, plays a chemical process in over 300 processes, right? And we think of it as, oh, this will help calm me down. It's so much more than that. And
Absolutely.
overdoing certain supplements can be bad for you just as much as having the deficiencies. So you want to be testing on all these different levels. So finding a practitioner, I mean, I think at this point, it doesn't matter where, if you Google natural practitioners in the area, I'm hoping you're going to find someone, right? Even if they're a functional medicine practitioner, they're going to be able to help you uncover the root cause. Because unfortunately, the Western medical system, they're not set up for that. They are trained. They are trained to prescribe. They are trained to diagnose. They're not trained to understand the root cause yet. It's shifting. People are starting to learn in that system that we need to incorporate more proactive measures, right? But as of right now, the best thing you could do is find someone who has a more natural approach.
They could have, I mean, let's take an example. A middle-aged woman, children are more or less now independent and running around, and she sort of realizes, hey, I'm actually constantly tired. Well, what could maybe quite logical stepwise evolution might be that the GP sees her and maybe does some of the basic bloods, and there it's already blatantly obvious that she has got a very low iron and an iron deficiency anemia. And by the way, she is bleeding every month quite heavily. So maybe there might be something where the Western medicine is quite important, that a gynecologist actually does a hysteroscopy DNC and checks out that there is not something nasty sitting there in the uterus. So something like that might be a kind of Western approach. At the same token, this woman's vitamin D levels might be virtually non-existent. And here you are, the magnesium, the zinc is low, the vitamin D is low. Now you need all that and a healthy nutrition to create serotonin. So if you don't have that, if you have very few good peptides and don't have those trace minerals and vitamins that you need, then you expect that you're happy? How?
Right.
How?
Right.
Okay.
Well,
So
oh, sorry. I was just going to say, here's the thing. I'm surprised to hear you say that that's something that you could go to from your GP there, because here you can't. You have to specifically know to ask for those specific tests, right? And the big thing is, I did a study several years ago, and I had over 50 women test their iron levels, but the reality is when they go to their general practitioner here, they only test iron and not ferritin. And ferritin are the markers that you really need to understand. And you have to ask your doctor, I want my ferritin checked. And they'll, well, why do you want your ferritin checked? And it's just like that. So that's the way we are here in the US. I'm sure you guys are way more progressive.
No.
than we are
It's money makes the world go round. Okay.
Okay.
So if I
So,
want that, I will not get a vitamin D free level, vitamin D level, because they say, well, if you think that you need vitamin, just supplement it. They just don't fund it here. End of the story.
So
That's
similar.
exactly. So if you're saying, I want the public to fund my medicine, well, you're right. Okay. If you say, I don't care, here's the money. Oh, you can do any test you want. Okay. So if you want to pay for it, you go for it.
Wow.
So I think that's the difference. Okay. So you can get anything, but you have to pay.
Wow.
But
And you have to
then
know to ask.
Correct. But that's I think an investment that we don't realize how important it is. We don't realize that we can actually change our biological age, that we can actually change our health to a degree, that we can add literally not lifespan. Lifespan might be you just drooling in a nursing home, but health span means you kicking ass when you're 70 and 80. And I think that's the power of what you are doing, Linn. That's the power of what we are all about. And that's why I'm so excited about it. I'm 57. I don't feel like it. I did recently some more advanced testing. Shit, my biological age is actually higher. And that really pissed me off. So I am now seriously changing things. Whilst I was doing a very healthy Mediterranean diet prior to that, I had to see that, well, actually, I'm still obese and I still have not done as much physical exercise. So these are two things that I can very easily remedy. Plus, there are many other things. So that's a journey. And so you start with your gut. I know my gut is superb now. And how do we know? How do we know gut is superb? What do you do to find out?
So the reality is that the majority of the population has some dysbiosis. And that is because we did at some point take antibiotics, or we did get food poisoning. You know, it doesn't take much to set off the balance, right?
Correct.
And depending on what you're eating, your drinking habits, everything we talked about. So the chances are you have some form of gut dysbiosis. And the way you're going to know that is if you're going to know that you have gut dysbiosis by the fatigue, by the tiredness in the morning, the sluggishness, anything of that sort. Those small symptoms are a cue to gut dysbiosis. If you're doing super well, you always have enough energy, you sleep perfectly, you're never grumpy, you're always happy. Does that sound normal? No. You know? And so that would be a cue that you're doing excellent and you have normal bowel movements twice a day. Like those things would be like, great, you have great gut health. You can eat anything you want and you're digesting it well, and your glucose isn't spiking. So I think that says it right there, right? Like the majority of the population has some form of dysbiosis. And
the way we find out is basically, come on, poo into this sample pot, because that's what we need. We need some of your poo. I know you're full of shit, you guys out there. So therefore, come on, give us some of it. And because then we can actually do a stool analysis and we can have a look in there. And it's so beautiful because then actually you get reports where you see names that you can't pronounce. And I have difficulties pronouncing as a bloody doctor, because there are all these kind of groups of bacteria that are playing together. And it's like a big orchestra. And if everyone, the right people in the orchestra, and they all like each other and they all play together, sounds fantastic. Can you imagine that there are a few people in there who don't know how to play, or are
even just one?
Touche. Exactly. And suddenly
that's the crazy thing of it, right? Like even just one can throw off the whole band.
Exactly. And sometimes we get surprises. So we're talking about the bacteria. There are many fungi in there, and we only just begin to realize what fungi actually are doing, and that they are just as much part of a healthy gut. But there can also be the wrong ones. There can be parasites in there. And viruses, that's right. And so, there's only so much a typical stool test will do, but it gives you a pretty good idea. It typically checks for the parasites, and it checks for all the major bacterial species that we like to see. And then you get a nice diagram of sorts. The one of the tests that I use, it basically gives you kind of a circle, and it shows you with all these kind of sectors where these species of the bacteria are, you should be all in a green thing, and it gives you sort of a nice circle, not kind of oops, oops, or oops. So good shit.
You know, can I tell you a quick story in revolving the microbiome? So there is this guy here in the US who owns a line of nursing homes. They're assisted living facilities. And over 87, I think, % of his patients were either Alzheimer's, dementia. They had some form of mental disease. And he decided, he learned about the carnivore diet and how, the gut microbiome affected the brain and all this stuff. And so he got permission from all of the family members to put all of his patients on a carnivore diet for a short time to see what happened. Every single one of them had reversal from Alzheimer's and dementia, and half of the population that were living there actually went home because they got better. And that to me was like one of the biggest aha moments of look at what's happening in our gut. And when you switch away and remove high inflammation from the body, when you remove the inflammatory systemic stuff going on in there, look at what happens. And now he's doing this with all of his assisted living homes, and it's changing lives. And he's just like, imagine if people knew this, the direct correlation to what you're eating and the inflammation it causes and how it's affecting your brain. Absolutely. And to me, I really like to highlight that for people, because there are so many things that we're not aware of and we don't hear about, but it's really not as complicated as we make things out to be. You don't have to go get all of these like big tests done and figure out like, why is my brain chemical response off of this? It's like, let's stop and start with the simple things. What are you ingesting?
Correct. So, and then I want to make a big shout out for fiber. Because we, they always say, eat lots of leafy greens. And you think, I don't like leafy greens. Well, what is this shit all about? Well, your bacteria, they are a little bit different in their needs than you. You would like to have your carbohydrates, some healthy fats, some protein, and then lots of trace minerals and vitamins. So that's what you need. Your bacteria need lots and lots of fiber. And the good bacteria, they need lots of fiber. They love that. If you give lots of sugar and carbohydrates into the gut, the bad bacteria are saying, ooh, that's just me. Come on, get out of the way. That sugar, that's for me. I want more. And they multiply. And suddenly you've got small bowel growth of bacteria. Suddenly you've got bloating. Suddenly you've got all these kind of beautiful things that you don't really want to have. So fiber is so beautiful. That is what your bacteria love. And we know there are studies out there show you that, for example, cancer survival or cancer actually occurring, the cancer survival increases, cancer occurring decreases with the amount of fiber you've got in your food. Hey, eat your bloody greens, okay? That's all I can say.
It's funny that you say that, because I can't eat greens. My body, I literally can't digest them because of the salicylates in them.
So what do you do?
That's where it comes down, where if you have SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, fiber actually feeds all of the gut bacteria. So you're perpetuating the gut dysbiosis. So it's not a one size fits all. What's going to help one person is not going to work for another person. Nice. And that's why the greens that I were eating were making me sick. And it turned out my grandpa, his doctor actually told him, you need to stop eating greens. And he lived to be 90, still working on his roof. He was fit. And so, but the doctor told him many years back, you need to stop eating greens because they're causing a lot of your digestive distress. Interesting. And it clicked for me. I'm like, if that works for him, I wonder what that would do for me. And I cut that out. But I love psyllium husk. Psyllium husk is one of the most simple and gentle forms of fiber that anyone can take without it really affecting your gut. So people who don't do well with high fiber diets because of dysbiosis, the psyllium husk does not act in the same response like a lot of other fiber supplements do, or even fiber from foods. So I highly recommend, I take it before every meal. And one of the beautiful things, this is a quick and easy tool for people, is it actually slows your sugar absorption. So if you take fiber before you're eating anything that has carbohydrates, or if you like, I want ice cream, I don't care what they're going to say, or I want to do this, take some psyllium husk before you eat that, because it slows the absorption. So it's not like a quick blood spike. It's going to actually be a more even kill. So that's my tip with fiber. I love psyllium husk, and
Love it. Love it. And let's put it all together. How about, we know that community is beautiful, and that we often don't talk as a family too much with each other. So how about on a Saturday morning, you go out and actually look up some recipes for gluten-free bread, which as an ingredient typically has psyllium husk. So you need that instead of, exactly, throw a few chia seeds in, ratio 3:1. So that with the fluid that goes in there gives you a gluey kind of thing. And then you use some buckwheat flour, which is gluten-free. Then you use some healthy seeds in there. You learn how to do it. Put it all together, bit of salt, bit of maybe Italian herbs in there. You will get a beautiful bread that you have created for a fraction of the cost that it would have cost you in the supermarket. You actually had an experience. You have taken action. You've become a leader within your family, a leader to yourself. You can look in the mirror and say, I did that today. Hey, how cool is that? How cool is that? So that is how you can make small changes and incorporate healthy nutrition. And I think healthy nutrition, it's quite, I want to say a quick word because we are running soon out of time, but I mean, there is so much we two could share our passion with. You were mentioning various diets. And I love the way that you were saying the carnivore diet, let's try that for a short period of time. Because many of the diets, they are really interventions that only really work for a short period of time, because they are often have their own problems down the line, because they are, some diets can lead to changes within your gut microbiome. Some things are not healthy in the long run. So therefore, let's be really quite clear about that. And that could be equally problems with more traditional diets, let's say a vegan diet, things like that. We see specific deficiencies of things that we are missing out. So let's not be silly. So only because something is deemed to be healthy or is deemed to be the new craze, yeah, okay. Let's be quite clear about that. Maybe get yourself really quite clever and don't just listen to Jane and Karen down the road, what their gym buddies are doing. It's probably not the way to go. Ultimately, if you were going for a completely generalized concept, what do you think, which kind of health plan or food plan, shall I say, would be, in general terms, the best?
So it's controversial, and that's because I've worked with patients for so long, and I think the best approach is balanced. And when I say balanced, it's not what people will tend to still go for. When you look back at how we used to eat long ago, we had a protein, a carb, and a vegetable. We ate very systematically. We didn't have a lot of compounds to break down, because the more meat you have on your plate, the more sulfur. When you incorporate that with the vegetables and bring in the salicylates and oxalates from those, your liver doesn't have the process capacity to break down all of those things at once. So we want to bring it back to like a basis of really balancing your diet and having, this is my view. And it's, again, I'm not a one size fits all kind of person. I really believe that each person's going to have a different composition. I lean more towards the keto because it's what my body does best with. If I go over a certain amount of carbs, I immediately feel the difference. And I know, because I'm so in tune with my body, I know when I've been set off. If I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm fit. And if something sets me off, it happens immediately. It's not just like this, like, I'll know right away.
Mm.
With the carnivore diet, I have doctors here in the US who have been on it for 20 years, and they're the best health I've ever seen. But it works for them because of their composition and their inability to do certain things.
Correct.
The vegan diet is the only one that across the board, I have seen every patient come in who was a vegan diet, who I had to try to switch away from that because they were so deficient in so many different minerals that it was not healthy, and they were losing bone structure. They were losing mass.
Absolutely.
Right. And so if I was going to tell anyone, and that's also because when you go on the vegan diet, you're loading up with so many more carbs, you're loading up with so much more fructose and sugars because you have very limited options as far as what you're ingesting in order to get your protein. It's going to come with a hefty amount of carbs. Right. And so it's the only one that I ever suggest people don't do. You know, did I jump on the bandwagon at one point and try it? I sure did. And did I last long? Absolutely not. You know, because I'm aware of what it was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like I think the carnivore diet has its place for people to lower their inflammation for a point so they can understand, oh, this is my baseline. That's what did it for me. I was like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel on a regular basis. Got it. Okay, now let me start reintroducing foods and find out what I can eat and what I can't.
Nice.
Right. And so it's really just about you paying attention to your body and knowing what's working for it and knowing, you know, just what's going to be the best approach and sticking with it.
Absolutely. And that's really good that you say it this way. I love that the issue is there are so many diets out there which are often just tried out willy-nilly without any testing, etc. And it's just stupid. There's basically a chimpanzee on a keyboard going, that's nice. Yeah, so it's bullshit. So, however, if you were to work with a team of people who actually can guide you in the best possible way. So if you've ruled out the nasty C word, the cancer and all the other things with your GP, you've stabilized whatever chronic disease there is for the time being. Now you're actually going for the root cause, looking at things. You figure out there's 1, 2, 3 main problems within your body that you want to address, and you might choose a certain diet to start off with. An exclusion diet or keto diet or carnivore. There are a number of options there that an experienced person can guide you based upon your symptoms and based upon your lab work and based upon your stool work, etc. So this might be a starting point. And then from there, you might reintroduce things. And chances are you might end up with something more like a Mediterranean food plan, where you essentially have got very healthy proteins, where you have got lots of vegetables, and by now you've figured out which ones are good for you and which ones are not. But you have got this balance in there. You're eating literally the rainbow because there's so many phytochemicals that your body needs, and it's so beautiful. So you're learning what your body requires. Often enough, your body is very happy to give you feedback. And you might get this, ooh, today I feel good. And you think suddenly, bloody hell, what have I achieved today? What's happening? And it's just, you actually did the right thing for your body. And your body says thank you very much to you by giving you this energy boost and this happiness. But it's all beautiful. And this is just a journey that's waiting for you guys. And it's just amazing. Don't take your life for granted. Whatever it is right now, this is just a starting point. This is a snapshot right now. Okay, cool. So let's take the snapshot. Let's do the war on the fitness for yourself, okay? And then maybe create a team around you, maybe with someone like Linn, who can guide you, who can help you, who can move with you and actually say, okay, have a look what we found here, and explain things to you and suddenly think, rest assured, there will be a lot of moments coming.
Oh, yeah.
You're in for a ride here. Linn, you're an amazing woman. You are such a passionate woman. It's beautiful to see that fever coming out of your eyes and say, yeah. So if people love that and want to work with you, where can they find you?
So I actually am creating a course right now so people can get all of the information. I briefly mentioned it. But the course is $50 during pre-launch because I want people to have access to this information. So it dives into so much of what you and I went into and so much more, so they can learn at their own pace about their body and things that could be setting them off and how to play with those different things and all of the testing that goes into it and what to find after your tests are done. I literally go in through all of this, and you can find it on my website. It's www.linnrivers.com, and it's LINN Rivers.com. And the pre-launch is so low because I really want people to have that no excuse price of, let me learn about my body, let me learn about my health. And even if you take one thing away from it, that's something, right? That's worth $50 alone, but it's worth something so beautiful that you're taking a step in a positive direction for yourself. I mean, that's golden. That's where you want to be. You want to be doing something positive for yourself every day. So
beautiful. I love it. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and a podcast because Linn's details are down there. Whilst you're down there, press the like and subscribe button and maybe leave a comment. What a rubbish! Or say, actually, well, thank you for that because of. So share your passion with us and show us that maybe where we can go, where maybe you teach us a thing. Maybe we can all come together as big teams and make this world a better place. I think we can. I think we can start by looking after our own nutrition, amongst other things. And I think, wow, this is a beautiful journey. So Linn, today was a great day. This is exactly what I needed to hear. This is exactly the passion that I needed to have reignited within me. You just poured a bit of jet fuel on my passion. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So today is a good day. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with passion. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.